Well, hello there, Dave Holmes, joined by Adam King. Busy week here. Of course, the season didn't end. The Buckeyes wanted to. 14-3, ugly loss to Missouri in the Cotton Bowl. But a lot of changes. The top of the list, of course, Will Howard. I hear some people saying he's the savior. Others say he's Kyle McCord 2.0. The opinions online are very on the polls like they always are. What do you think? What's your take on Will Howard with this team?
I think Will Howard is exactly what Ohio State needs.
Okay.
I think, one, if you are judging Will Howard based off of his time at Kansas State, you are judging Will Howard with Kansas State talent. Mm-hmm. And I think that matters. Will Howard is going to be throwing to Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, Emeka Egbuka. He's going to be throwing to these wide receivers that are leaps and bounds better than what is in Manhattan, Kansas. Sorry if you're a K-State fan, it's just the truth. And when you look at some of the plays that he's made, there are times when an interception shows up on the stat sheet. It's just clearly not on Will Howard. And I think that's what people love to do, is they love to take raw stats and say this is why he is who he is. One, he's 6'5". He's 240 plus pounds. That is a huge addition to any offense, to have a guy that can go out there and move around. I mean, short yardage. It's been a problem for the Buckeyes the last couple of years. Now you add in a guy who can run that read option, who can fall forward for 3 yards. It's a whole different ballgame. What you like to see from Howard is that there's a lot there, Dave. It looks like the things you need in place are there, and now you see if Ryan can develop it.
Okay, so the bull case here, if I'm making a bull case for Will Howard, it is that he is Josh Allen, right? He's a guy who's a little erratic with the accuracy, but he's big, he's tall, he can run. I'm with you. And the bear case, everyone points to the interceptions. I do want to point out, I believe as a true freshman, he threw 10 of those picks. So I think his numbers are inflated by being in the game before he was quite ready for it. But what you said is important. Josh Allen, when he came out of Wyoming, people pummeled him for his accuracy. He was only throwing in the mid-50s% completion. There's some of that is how open are your guys?
Yep.
How big are the windows? And the windows in Columbus, like you said, much bigger than the windows at Kansas State. So I think that's the bull case for him. I think he needs to be better than Kyle McCord. And if he's 20% better than Kyle McCord, that probably means you beat Michigan this year.
Yeah.
And it probably means you have a decent chance of a national title. It's not like the Buckeyes were far off. We all have the stench in our mouth of the Cotton Bowl and how bad they looked. But if you think back to Michigan, you're on their side of the field, a chance to win the game and go 12-0 and make everything. So I do think the Buckeyes are not that far off. And if Will Howard is a mediocre step over Kyle McCord, I think they have a shot next year of being really good.
I think that's a really interesting point because, so often we talk with Kyle McCord that he just had to steer the ship. He didn't have to be a star. He just had to keep things in line. And in the biggest moments, it just didn't happen this year. And that is the big reason why Ohio State was playing in Dallas. And you could take the Cotton Bowl for what it's worth. I'll say this. I think if Kyle plays in that game, they probably win that game.
They probably win that game.
But that's not your goal.
Yeah.
I mean, your goal, one, you've got Devin Brown going out 2 snaps in or whatever it was. You can't expect a true freshman to step into a role like that he's never had and shine. And I think that's one of the reasons that Will Howard is here. Weirdly, as much pain as that Cotton Bowl brought Buckeye fans, it also brought Ryan Day a lot of clarity for his future. And I think he said, listen, Devin Brown, you're great. Devin's going to stick around. He's going to compete for this starting job. Nothing is given at Ohio State. He said, Devin, you're great. If you want to compete with Will, let's see how this goes. But you're also injury prone. We've multiple times tried to get you a shot. And so with Will Howard, I think what it does is brings in a guy that can steer the ship. I don't think that's the question. The question with Kyle is, can he? Will Howard has proven that he can. He took a team to a Big 12 championship. Now, I also think Will Howard brings the aspect of going over the top and not only just being a guy that's, staying the waters, but maybe making those big plays that you need to see to get a team, not just beating Michigan, but a national championship.
The other thing this says to me is that maybe Ryan Day doesn't think he has enough equity built up at this point to afford a bad season next year. Meaning he needs someone, what is it called, Flex Seal? Is that what you slap on the side of the boat? We need to slap on the side of that boat and say we need someone with experience. Maybe Lincoln Kienholz is the guy. Maybe Aaron Nolan will be the guy. Maybe Devin Brown could become the guy. But this guy I feel good about right now.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to realign his years back up. Hopefully this is your bridge year to get you to Aaron Nolan. And Quinn Ewers really set this program back. It was all set up to go Fields to Stroud to Ewers. Quinn left the program in the dust. He didn't do any favors here in Columbus, and that made Ryan Day scramble.
I put out a tweet that said that, and people told me Quinn was never coming here.
I remember him being in Columbus.
He was never coming here.
I saw him take a kneel down snap at one point at the shoe. So I think that's what this is too. This is Ryan Day saying, look, I'm not saying Ryan Day is necessarily on the hot seat yet. I'm saying he can't afford to go 8-4 or 9-3 if his quarterback situation falls apart. At this point, he knows next year needs to be a better year than this year.
I mean, I'll say it. I think everybody in Columbus knows that this is it for Ryan Day, and I think he's not afraid to address it. I think that's why, we've heard a lot of rumblings with the coaching changes and a lot of different things. You go out and you get Will Howard because you're right. This is it. Got to push your chips in the middle, because if we're sitting here next year with a new athletic director and Ryan Day, who loses 4 straight to Michigan, I mean, I know you have that 12-team playoff, so maybe things shape up a little differently in the end, but I don't think he wants to be sitting there. I don't think he wants to be in the what's next regard next year. So I think you're right. This is Ryan Day saying, I can't have another season of 12 games trying to grow a quarterback or trying to work out kinks, because they got to go to Oregon. They got to go to Penn State, and they got a game at home against Michigan. They could win all those games. I mean, we got to see how this team shapes up. But obviously, you don't want to take a young quarterback that just hasn't played into Eugene, Oregon. That's just not going to be an easy job.
Okay, so we want to wrap up quickly. I know the online viewers' attention spans nowadays, it's short, so we got to wrap up here quickly. But let's get this before we go. Jack Sawyer, Latham Ransom, both announcing they're coming back. Where do you see this defense next year? I mean, we're still waiting on a few other big fish here, but I think that's a good sign so far for next year.
Well, I think it's interesting that Jack, said after the game, we're all on the same page. You've got Tyleek, you've got Ransom, you've got Sawyer. Those are the ones. We've yet to see one other than Mike Hall, and there were some injury concerns with Mike Hall. You kind of have to take that chance at that point because he's struggled with injuries throughout his career. But other than Mike Hall, we haven't seen anybody say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go pro. I'm not going to come back. And we've heard a lot about how this team wants to come back and prove something. I look back at this year, and I asked Jack this in Dallas, do you think that you reached the goals that you set out, not overarching, not Michigan, not national title, but as a defense? And he said, yeah. He said, I think we played a really good year. There are drives we would like back. And I think that's the interesting part, is there seems to be a huge chip on the shoulder of this defense. Even walking away from the Cotton Bowl, they gave up 14 points.
I mean, and outside of the fourth quarter against Michigan, had they gotten off the field 1 or 2 first downs sooner, maybe it's a different ending. Yeah. Outside of that, they were really good all year.
It was a phenomenal year. And now if you can get a lot of those guys back, it's almost a chance to, I mean, I can't believe we're saying this, but it's almost a chance that you could spend the whole offseason just stressed about the offense, knowing it's par for the course of the defense.
Yeah, I'll say this about the defense. I mean, they played really well all year, but these guys want to come back because you don't want to leave Ohio State without beating Michigan, winning the Big Ten championship. Forget the national championship. Just those first 2, you got to clear those first. The other thing, too, we got to remember is nowadays these guys can come back and make money, good money. So it's not like you're choosing between millions or broke. You're choosing between millions or maybe $1 million. And you can do that for a year and be totally fine.
Dave Holmes money?
Yeah, or else, yeah. I would love that. So he's Adam King. I'm Dave Holmes. We're going to have plenty more Buckeye coverage for you all throughout the offseason. Stay with us here on 10tv.com and our 10TV YouTube.